Most people are told their blood work is normal, but normal is not optimal. I'm Tanya Malik Chawla, and this is Biology by Design. Your biology is not something that happens to you, it is something you design. So let's get started. One of the most confusing patterns I see in practice is this: somebody's eating perfectly, working out regularly, they're doing all the right things, and yet their hormones don't seem to be improving. Their body composition isn't changing, their energy isn't where it should be. Their sleep is inconsistent, and more often than not, they feel like they're putting in far more effort than the results they're getting back. And when I dig deeper, I often realize this isn't a food problem, it isn't a workout problem, it is a nervous system problem. Or more specifically, what we call central nervous system dysregulation. See, one of the case studies I recently shared was a 26-year-old woman diagnosed with PCOS who had not got her menstrual cycle in almost 5 years. When we look deeper, her cortisol was elevated, her prolactin was elevated. This wasn't simply a metabolic issue. This was a stress biology issue. And correcting that stress physiology, even before we aggressively looked at her metabolic interventions, played a significant role in helping restore her cycle in just 8 weeks. This is a pattern I see over and over again. In a retrospective analysis of 130 client reports, low DHEAS, elevated prolactin, and abnormal morning cortisol were amongst the most commonly observed endocrine findings. 88% had DHEAS below optimal. DHEAS is a major adrenal androgen and relatively stable compared to cortisol. This shows a low androgen reserve phenotype. DHEAS is also discussed in literature as a stable marker of adrenocortical activity and chronic stress biology. Also, 71% had elevated prolactin. Prolactin is stress responsive, and stress-induced hyperprolactinemia is a recognized clinical phenomena. Also, 62% had cortisol out of optimal ranges. See, some people arrive with elevated cortisol, some people arrive with flattened cortisol patterns. Some people are stuck in what we call a wired but tired state. Others feel like they need 3 alarms, 2 coffees just to function. Some come in with chronic constipation, bloating, or digestive dysfunction where we keep looking for the gut causes only to discover that the nervous system itself is the bottleneck. Different presentations, same root pattern. A nervous system that has forgotten how to move between stress and recovery. And that distinction becomes important because I want you to remember cortisol itself is not the enemy. In fact, cortisol is essential for life. It should rise in the morning. The rise is part of what helps us wake up, feel alert, mobilize, feel energetic, and actually begin the day. The problem isn't cortisol. The problem is when stress response remains activated long after the stressor should have passed. That's when biology starts becoming expensive. And when most people hear the word stress, they think about things like deadlines, a single argument that they had, financial pressure, work pressure, even a single difficult conversation. And while all of those things can absolutely contribute to stress, the conversation today is much more nuanced. Because not all stress is bad. In fact, some stress is exactly what makes us stronger. A heavy workout is stress, resistance training is stress, heat exposure, cold exposure, fasting, all of these are stressors. Yet all of these are tools commonly used in longevity science because they create adaptation. The body experiences a challenge and responds by becoming more resilient. In longevity research, we call this concept hormesis. Researchers like David Sinclair, Walter Longo have discussed these principles rather extensively. The idea is very simple. A small, manageable dose of stress can make a biological system stronger. The problem begins when it stops being a challenge and starts becoming a lifestyle. That's when stress becomes de-stress. And this is where the nervous system becomes trapped in a biological state it was never designed to sustain. From a biological standpoint, many of the same survival pathways that would activate if a lion were to chase you are activated when you're living inside a chronic stressor that you don't feel capable of escaping. Think about a toxic relationship, a toxic work environment, a life that feels misaligned, persistent emotional suppression, a constant state of overwhelm. The body continues to interpret all of these as threats, and the response is always fight or flight. This is where understanding the nervous system becomes so much more important. We broadly have 2 dominant states, sympathetic state and parasympathetic state. Sympathetic state has nothing to do with sympathy. It is the fight or flight state. This is where cortisol rises, blood glucose is mobilized, resources are shifted immediately towards survival. The body is basically preparing to deal with an immediate threat. Parasympathetic state is the repair and recover state. This is where digestion improves, recovery improves, hormonal signaling improves, reproductive functioning becomes possible. The body begins allocating resources towards repair, healing, maintenance, and growth. The problem is not entering fight or flight, the problem is never leaving it. And this is the pattern I increasingly see in modern life. Not because one stressful thing happened, but because we've built an environment that is continuously activating stress pathways without giving ourselves the opportunity to recover. Just imagine this. You're training a muscle every day, hour after hour, every single day. Never resting, never recovering, never allowing adaptation. What's going to happen? Eventually the system breaks down, right? That's essentially what many people are doing with their nervous system. Which is why I often say the old saying, we are what we eat, is absolutely incomplete. Today, we are what we consume, and that includes far, far more than food. It includes the content we consume, the conversations we participate in, the environment we are living in, the relationships we stay in, the thoughts we repeatedly think, the beliefs we carry, and of course, the food we eat. So I want to start with content, because I genuinely believe this is one of the most underestimated stressors of modern life. Much of today's content ecosystem is built around outrage, whether it's political outrage, religious outrage, social outrage, fear, conflict, constant stimulation. Even what we call entertainment often keeps the nervous system activated rather than allowing it to relax. We've created a world where our downtime is no longer restorative, and then we wonder, why are we constantly exhausted? The second major stressor I see is chronic sleep deprivation. Somewhere along the way, sleeping less became a badge of honor. Late night dinners, late night scrolling, late night work, early alarms, and somehow we've normalized living in a state of exhaustion. Yet, every major conversation in longevity eventually comes back to sleep. Sleep is where recovery happens. Sleep is where memory consolidation happens. Sleep is where neural repair happens. Sleep is where much of our hormonal balancing happens. Any longevity researcher worth listening to will eventually tell you the exact same thing. Health optimization starts with sleep. The third pattern I see, particularly in India, is something much deeper. It's lack of autonomy, especially amongst women. The guilt associated with personal choice, the pressure to suppress emotions, to tolerate situations that are no longer healthy, to remain quiet when something feels wrong. And we know that emotional health is no longer separate from physical health. Unhappy relationships activate inflammatory pathways. Research has showed us that. Chronic loneliness impacts health outcome. Supportive relationships improve health outcomes. This isn't philosophy, this is biology. Which brings us to one of the most famous findings in longevity research. The long-running Harvard study of adult development consistently found the one strongest predictor of long-term health and well-being wasn't money. It wasn't status. It wasn't achievement. It was the quality of our relationships. Similarly, when researchers examined populations living in the so-called blue zones, social connections, belonging, and purpose repeatedly emerged as common themes. Now let's come back to food for a second, because food absolutely matters. One of the largest physiological stressors I often see is chronic under-protein consumption. In fact, the recent Indian dietary analysis in the ICMR Lancet study continues to show what many of us already know. We are predominantly a carbohydrate-heavy population. And listen, this isn't a vegetarian versus non-vegetarian conversation. This is a biology conversation. Protein provides amino acids. Essential amino acids cannot be manufactured by the body. They must come from diet. And when protein intake remains chronically inadequate, the body has no choice but to source amino acids from existing tissues, including your muscle. This is a catabolic state. And remaining chronically catabolic in itself is a biological stressor. Which brings me back to the central idea of this entire conversation. Every time I work with somebody, I become more convinced that one of the important places to begin a health journey is nervous system regulation. Not because nervous system regulation solves everything, but because it influences everything. It influences your digestion, recovery, hormones, sleep, energy, body composition, even your mood. One very simple example. When cortisol remains elevated late into the evening, sleep architecture becomes compromised. Melatonin signaling becomes impaired, which means deep sleep becomes impaired, which also means growth hormone output becomes impaired, and recovery becomes impaired, which is going to impact your cognitive performance. And because sleep is one of the most fundamental repair mechanisms in the human body, everything downstream starts to suffer. This is why, inside the Biology by Design community, the first place I encourage people to begin is what I call the biology foundation pathway. Before we obsess over supplements, before we obsess over protocols, before we obsess over optimization, we must start by strengthening the environment in which our biology is operating. We have to start with sleep, recovery, stress biology, nervous system regulation. The foundational input that tells the body it is safe enough to repair, recover, adapt, and thrive. Because health is not something that happens to us, it is something we design. And in my experience, one of the most powerful places to begin designing is by teaching the nervous system how to feel safe again.